January 28th, Sunday. 0 Celsius, clear, slightly overcast, calm.
Lux Gyula,
60 years old college teacher. District 12.
We were just busy boarding up the laundry room window. It didn't have a single pane left, when a terrible crash shook the house. The basement corridor was filled with rubble, and a huge cloud of dust poured out of the workshop. I went into the room, and there was a pile of broken bricks on the floor, and among the rubble was a massive artillery shell, 21 centimeters long and about 35 kilograms. The suitcases and boxes were smashed. I called the superintendent to come and see what was going on. He started wailing that we should run away because it could still explode and then we'd be finished. Of course, it could have been a time bomb. He ran across to the neighboring house where there were Hungarian soldiers to call someone to take the shell away. But they just laughed at him. I didn't hesitate, though, just as I'd done many times before. I grabbed it right then and there and carried the shell out into the garden. When the women saw me with the shell, they started screaming and wailing. There was a great sense of relief in the house when the dangerous projectile was outside. But I had to take it out because I thought that if it exploded in here, in the house, then the whole house would collapse and 3 families would die here. Whereas if it only exploded when I was already outside with it, then only 1 person would die. German soldiers were just arriving as I carried it out, and they admired my courage, and several of them said that they certainly wouldn't have done something like that.
Neseu László,
15 years old. Buda, District 1, Mészáros Street 32.
Last night, or rather late yesterday evening, we heard a huge crash. In the morning, we found out what had caused it. A munitions parachute had fallen onto the house and hadn't opened. It had torn through the roof, the attic floor, pulled down the upstairs pantry, and punched through the ground floor. Meanwhile, according to the soldiers' estimates, 50 kilos of ammunition had exploded and settled in the stairwell. If it had fallen over the shelter, it would have ended up in the cellar. We were lucky. We pried the parachute out of its metal casing and tried to smuggle it away. The crate contained 200 kilograms of ammunition for anti-tank guns. The soldiers taught me how to dismantle the ammunition. I diligently took apart the shells all day, saying to myself that this would help end the war sooner.
Gyula Riterati Lóc,
23-year-old First Lieutenant Margaret Island.
For the past 2 days, the Russians have barely advanced, but they're still forcing civilians, often women, to transport ammunition across the frozen Danube to the island, even in broad daylight. We don't fire on them. Yesterday afternoon, a mine blew off both of Sergeant Hahn's legs, and since the wounded could only be evacuated from the island at night, he bled to death in the meantime. On January 28th, the Russians were only 100 meters away, and the last clubhouse fell. The area we were defending had become so narrow that my cannons could no longer be deployed. However, the higher German command insisted, for moral reasons, that my unit remain on the island.